Our next speaker, Juha Miikkulainen, has worked for nuclear energy sector for the past 30 years. And he's also active in Twitter and believes that nuclear power is part of the solution. Welcome, Juha. The stage is yours.
Oh, so very good morning. Thank you for the nice words. And thank you for organizing this nice event again, this time in English language, if I remember correct, for the first time in English. There is a hole in the ground in the picture, first picture. The hole is about the size of Helsinki Olympic Stadium. And I claim now that it's a part of the solution. Well, it's a still very, very partial part of the solution. But this 1 square kilometer empty property will supply 10% of Finnish electricity within 10 years. And the next 10 minutes I will not talk about my employee, Fennovoima company. Instead, I would like to tickle your brain with a couple of general thoughts from the global energy sector. Hopefully I'm able to surprise you positively with some of the fascinating facts and especially some scales and magnitudes of this field. I try to convince you that all of the clean energy sectors are only partial solutions. But we should work together and we should be supporting each other. Industrial Summit is a nice event. And for the new feature this year, we should, all the people here in front were asked from the organizer's side to present the picture of our life. This is the picture of my life. It's my childhood landscape where my family has been living on that hill behind the bushes. And now I would like to ask a question from you, audience. What do you think? What is the most famous, most well-known island in the world? Is it Australia? Great Britain? Greenland? Or Iceland, maybe? I think the world-famous island is Olkiluoto. Everybody knows it's the place where they make nuclear power, but not many don't know that it's an island. And this location is exactly 20 kilometers away from Olkiluoto Island. My grandmother was a municipal councillor when Olkiluoto 1 and Olkiluoto 2 were licensed. That was early 1970s. And this car here is a veteran registered Land Rover model 1956. It was renovated 10 years ago by my hands. 1970, my family lived up on the hill, and that was the only car we had, 1972 until 1976, when I was a baby. Now, this is the only car I own personally at the moment. And with this little pellet here, if it was uranium, not the used one, but new pellet, it could be, and if it could be installed in the fuel petrol tank of this Land Rover, I could drive with this amount of energy for the half a year, approximately 10,000, a bit less, 10,000 kilometers. Last 40 years, global energy consumption relative trend looks rather sad. The black is really black. The black is fossil. The world's energy, not only electricity, but all the different forms of energy we use in the world, is made out of fossil fuels, about 80%. The world-class challenge is to get rid of that fossil energy sources. But don't you worry, Finnish energy situation has been on a good development track. And here you can see the flags and the levels. We still have some problems with transportation, heating sector, electricity sector, industry sector as well, to clean our energy systems. But the world has really much bigger problems than us in Finland. This graph shows the absolute development of the global energy consumption. As you can see, 2 world wars were fought mainly with coal. Coal is here, the gray one, 100 years ago. After my car, my Land Rover, was manufactured in 1956, the energy consumption exploded by the factor of 4. Fossil fuels opened the road towards fast technical development and welfare. The amount of population and energy consumption curves look very much alike, by the way. And on the tip of that curve, you can really see hydropower, nuclear, wind, solar. So those guys have a lot to do to replace the fossil sectors. The public debate has a tremendous ability to perceive complex topics with black and white colors. Things are either good or bad. Energy sector is complex and there is no fully harmless energy sources. But as we are all quite fond of cherry picking, let's do some cherry picking right now. I would personally prefer my energy being harmless, of course. Look on the left-hand column. Clean, quick to build, safe, reliable, small environmental footprint, modern, new age, sufficient. I don't go through the red sector at all, but they are the opposite. And as I've been working in the nuclear sector for 30 years almost now, my sector is normally generally considered almost that red sector. And I want you to remember these green words right now. And I try to, within the next 7 slides, go and prove that nuclear sector, as well as all the other clean energy sectors, are on this green side. First, let's talk about clean energy. Life cycle emissions from the electricity generation. How clean kilowatt hours or electricity we should produce? The question in the middle. Now I want you to raise your hands. There is a scale on the bottom from 0 to 900. Who would be happy to have kilowatt hours or electricity with the emissions of 900 grams per produced kilowatt hour? Raise your hand. No one. How about 500? 1. 200? No, several. 100. Even more. And zero, well, it's impossible, but zero, everybody wants zero emissions. Okay. The coal is a clear winner. Coal produces almost 900 grams CO2 emissions per produced kilowatt hour. Gas, it's 50% better. Biomass, it's considered to be renewable energy source. Okay? If biomass can replace these real fossils up here, it's goody. But it's not as good as solar power, hydro, wind, nuclear. These good guys are all below 100, so they are quite neutral considering CO2 emissions. And this European map here on the right-hand side shows you which countries are good and which are not so good. We have Norway, we have Sweden, obviously hydro in Norway, 40% of nuclear in Sweden, France, 75% nuclear, and Switzerland, hydropower. The next graph, the best increase in electricity generation per capita, per person, over 15-year period of installations. So this graph shows the record rates of adding low carbon energy relative to population. Megawatt hours on y-axis. And let's see what happens. Italy built wind and solar 98 to 2013 within the 15-year period. And they could increase 0.6 megawatt hours per every Italian person. Well done. Spain, wind and solar, the same time frame, they made a little bit better. Famous Denmark, wind and solar, 1.6 megawatt hours per every Danish person. Next sector, Olkiluoto 3 alone, 2.4 megawatt hours per every Finnish guy. Within 15 years building time. It was originally 5 years, but because in Finland we are pretty stringent and our authority is working really fine, it took a bit longer. Switzerland, nuclear. Finland, nuclear. When my grandmother was there making decisions, 70s, 80s. Belgium, France, Arab Emirates, and Sweden. So we can really, if we want, we can build and increase fastly clean energy production. The next slide is the most brutal slide of my presentation. How many casualties is acceptable per kilowatt hour? Or in this graph, we are talking about the larger amount of electricity. We talk about terawatts. How many deaths per terawatt hour produced by the energy source? Well, the winner again, coal kills 250 people producing 1 terawatt hour, prematurely killing people. Fossil, biomass, 50, gas. And then the good sectors, hydro, solar, wind, and nuclear. And I claim now that nuclear is the safest with wind power, safest of all for the people. For instance, burning coal causes more premature deaths every day than the production of nuclear energy has caused throughout its 65 to 70 years of history. The size of the environmental footprint correlates with the power density or effectiveness of the power source. Weak energy streams produce 1 watt per square meter. There is one. So if you have a hydropower station, which could be 1 square meter, it could produce 1 watt every moment. As more dense sources produce up to 1,000 times more. And in the end, we have fossil and nuclear producing 1,000 times more than these weaker streams. In the environment, in the nature, the situation could look like this. I have this 1 square kilometer nuclear site 100 kilometers south from here, called Hanhikivi in Pyhäjoki. Once it's completed, it will produce electrical energy equivalent to biofuels planted in the farm field, covering almost the total area of the city of Oulu. And all the other sectors are in between. Well, wind parks should be something like 20 times 20 kilometers, or solar even. Many kilometers we're taking land if we want to produce the same amount of electricity with the solar. This I skip away. The history of nuclear power is as long as my old Land Rover. It's a bit younger sector than my father, actually. It's 65 years. And during that time, nuclear has been able to grow, and it produces almost the half of the clean energy produced in Europe. Hydro and renewables doing the rest. And biomass here in this pink sector is approximately half. Typical feature for nuclear power is stable, predictable, and reliable production. This picture we see, it's February, every day in February 2018. Finland needed approximately 12,000 megawatts every moment. And nuclear power submitted almost 3,000 megawatts electricity to the national grid. As you can see, it's really stable. Day and night, independent of the weather, independent of the season. Managing variations just in consumption, up here, is easier than managing variations in both consumption and production. Modern Western lifestyle requires a lot of energy. One Finn needs 5,000 megawatt hours energy in his or her lifetime. So I have used 3,000 megawatts already. I have a bit more than 2,000 megawatt hours left. It means that I'm consuming as much as a sauna every day and every night. And this amount of energy, this 5,000 megawatt hours, could be produced operating 4 hours Hanhikivi 1 nuclear power plant, or 10 hours the complete all Finnish wind power. But my lifetime energy could be also produced with peat, this heap, wood, fossil, or that little spot there is uranium. It's about 1 liter I would need. And you can compare with this pellet. Let's say 100 of these pellets would make it. But in this funny picture from last summer, Helsinki swimming stadium, peat and wood could be stored in these bigger pools. The fossil can be stored in the kids' pool. And the uranium can be easily stored in a Coke bottle for whole of my life, energy need. And as uranium is so dense and powerful material, almost the amount of waste is considerably low. Easy and safe handling is proven technology. As you can see here, this is all the waste Switzerland has produced during the 40 years. You can produce with this amount of uranium fuel 15 years of Switzerland's electricity. And all the nuclear waste produced in Olkiluoto Island is stored underwater pools, and you can see the schematic picture of this building in Olkiluoto. All the fuel produced there, or the waste, is stored in that building, which is about the size of this particular room. All the above-mentioned facts and figures have convinced Fennovoima's closest neighbors, 100 kilometers south, even up in Oulu. We have measured local support from the very beginning of the project, 2007 until today. The social license has to be earned every day via good and transparent work and close cooperation with the locals. And which is normal, nuclear projects are a bit delayed every time, so I'm 7 minutes delayed, so I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Juha Miikkulainen from Fennovoima.